Have you ever done a health reading that shows really bad news? In this video, I'll share a dental reading that appeared to be really bad, as well as how things turned out. Hi everybody, I'm Sue Allen Clayton. Welcome to my channel where we're learning how to read tarot one card at a time. In today's reading, we'll be using two 3-card spreads to help figure out whether my tooth would heal on its own or need to be pulled. I will be using the Radiant Rider-Waite Tarot, and there is a link below. Last year in October, I noticed that one of my teeth was aching a bit. It was a bottom molar that already had a crown and a root canal, so I was guessing it would be an expensive fix. My plan was to nurse it along until the beginning of December when I had a hygiene appointment, and then get it fixed in January when my new round of dental benefits kicked in. That worked for about a month, and then it started to swell. By that time, my hygiene appointment was still a couple of weeks away. I could get the swelling to go down if I did a lot of brushing and flossing, and I figured I probably had something caught in the gum. Then the swelling got worse, and what I didn't want to happen was for it to become a crisis over the Thanksgiving break. So on Wednesday, 8 days before Thanksgiving, I went to the dentist. He actually gasped when he saw the swelling, told me it was an abscess, prescribed antibiotics, and told me to come back if the swelling returned once I was done with my week of antibiotics. The dentist told me that he guessed that my tooth had a crack and would need to be removed. Not the answer I wanted. I got home and did a tarot reading, which I'll share with you, and then I'll share what happened and my follow-up reading. My question was, will the antibiotics work and my tooth be fixed? I used a 3-card spread to look at the energy around my tooth. Card number 1 looked at the current energy of the infection. I drew the 7 of Swords. Card number 2 looked at the energy of healing. I drew the 2 of Cups reversed. Card number 3 looked at the future health of the tooth. I drew the Tower. Let's begin by talking about my first impression. I saw the Tower and immediately knew that the tooth would need to come out. I could see that the tooth was infected and broken, and there was inflammation under the crown. This was absolutely not the answer I wanted, but I also felt that it was definitive. Let's look at each card individually. Card number 1 looked at the current energy of the infection. I drew the 7 of Swords. Here are the notes I made when I saw the card. Quote, "The antibiotics will work for 5 of the 7 days." Unquote. This ended up being exactly accurate. It was on the 6th day that the infection came back. One thing the dentist did was to try to clean out the tooth. He used sharp scaling instruments that are much like swords. My next note was that the scaling was only partially effective, as only 2 of the swords actually stuck or did the trick. Basically, I was stuck with the problem. The 7 of Swords is a card about deception. I think that's what I was doing. I was trying to convince myself that the tooth would be fine for a bit longer because I didn't want to deal with oral surgery, both due to the cost and also because I knew it wouldn't be fun. In terms of deception, the problem was also hidden. It wasn't visible on a standard X-ray. It required a special 3D X-ray, which my dentist could do, but said he didn't really have the expertise to reliably read. So my dentist did what he could. The next step was to send me to a specialist, and there were 2 choices, as shown by the swords on the ground, which was an oral surgeon or a periodontist who handles gum disease. Card number 2 looked at the energy of healing. I drew the 2 of Cups reversed. My first thought when I saw this card was that the antibiotics didn't work. Let's look at the 2 of Cups in the upright position because it's easier to see. Above the couple, we see a lion's head. Some people believe it is a monster from Greek mythology called a chimera. Chimera's big weapon is that she could breathe fire. She was pretty much invincible as she had a lion's strength, a goat's cunning, and a snake's venom. I think this is a healthy immune system. Unfortunately, the card is in the reverse position. The chimera is below the couple, basically because it's lying on its back, and the liquid from the couple's upside-down cups can pretty much drown it. The other thing is the staff with the 2 snakes around it. This is called a caduceus, which is a symbol of commerce. However, it looks very similar to the staff of Asclepius, which only had 1 snake and is the Greek demigod of medicine, and what we recognize in most healthcare logos. According to mythology, he was able to restore the health of the sick and bring the dead back to life. So the fact that this is upside down confirmed my suspicion that the tooth was not going to be healed. I also read the couple is a partnership between me and my dentist. They are upside down and the healing didn't work. I needed to find a new partner. Card number 3 looked at the future health of the tooth. I drew the tower. As I mentioned with my first impression, I could see that the tooth had reached a crisis point and needed to come out. Basically, this was the worst case scenario as far as I was concerned. I knew the tooth would need to be removed. As for the timing, I was hoping that the antibiotics would do the trick and I'd make it to the new year, despite the fact that the previous card showed that the antibiotics wouldn't be effective for long. So here's what happened next. I'd been on the antibiotics, and after lunch on day 5, my mouth started swelling again. Because my dentist had warned me to come back as soon as possible if my mouth started to swell, I knew it needed to be taken care of before Thanksgiving, which gave me exactly 1 day. I was able to get an appointment with the oral surgeon on the day before Thanksgiving. Since my previous reading was so accurate, I decided to do another one to see what the outcome of my visit with the oral surgeon would be. Card number 1 shows the current state of the tooth. I drew the 9 of Cups. Card number 2 shows the surgeon's perspective on the extraction. I drew the Hierophant. Card number 3 shows the likelihood of an extraction today. I drew the Devil. I looked at this and thought, I'm going to get my wish. The tooth is causing problems and he's going to pull it. Let's look at each card individually. Card number 1 shows the current state of the tooth. I drew the 9 of Cups. The 9 of Cups is the wish card. I don't think of dental work as being at the top of anyone's wish list, but when you need it, you need it. And I knew I needed it. Just as a coincidence, my dad developed a tooth abscess a couple of days before I did. His entire face was swollen, and I really didn't want to get to the state he was in. Also, knowing that Thanksgiving was coming up and people were taking a 4-day weekend, and the fact that the antibiotics had stopped working, I was really nervous about having to wait another 5 days to get this taken care of. So my wish really was to get the tooth removed, if that was required. Abscessed or infected teeth are no joke. I Googled the consequences of untreated tooth abscesses for this video, and the infection can enter your bloodstream and be life-threatening. Taking out the tooth was the best solution. You've made it this far in the video, and I wanted to stop and ask a favor if you're not already a subscriber, and that is to please hit the subscribe button. It's free for you, and it will also help me to grow this channel. Plus, it means that you won't miss anything. Thanks so much, and if you're already a subscriber, I truly appreciate your ongoing support. Now let's get back to the video. Card number 2 shows the surgeon's perspective on the extraction. I drew the Hierophant. A Hierophant is an expert, as is a surgeon, so I knew that I would listen to his opinion, and given the rest of the cards, I was pretty sure he would tell me that my tooth needed to be removed. And that ended up being exactly what happened. He showed me the x-ray and he pointed out the shadowy area in the roots, which he said indicated infection, and it looked like the tooth was cracked. So the expert had spoken and my tooth needed to be removed. Card number 3 shows the likelihood of an extraction today. I drew the Devil. The Devil card is about a toxic environment or unhealthy behaviors that are ruining your life. I think that my cracked, infected tooth would qualify as something that was toxic and having a detrimental impact on my health. So it was no surprise that the oral surgeon recommended removing the tooth, which was exactly what happened the day before Thanksgiving. I guess I was lucky that he had the time in his schedule, which was no big surprise, given there isn't a lot of demand for oral surgery the day before Thanksgiving. Also, thankfully, due to my son and daughter-in-law's schedule, we had celebrated a few days earlier. In summary, the tooth was infected and cracked. He extracted it and he did a bone graft. The recovery was painful and I was pretty miserable for a few days, but Tarot was dead on in the first reading about the tooth needing to be removed and in the second reading about what the oral surgeon would recommend. 2 weeks later, I went back for a checkup and to have my stitches removed. And to my horror, the area was either still infected or infected again. So I ended up being back on antibiotics for the third time in 4 weeks, with another follow-up 6 weeks later. The toxic, unhealthy environment continued. This was not a fun experience, and I don't recommend it. However, I think it was the first time that I felt extremely confident in a medical reading, even though I didn't like the result. And it did help me psych myself up for getting the tooth pulled. I hope this video will help you with your tarot readings. Please leave a comment if you'd like to share what you learned. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.